The attic air hung thick and still, a forgotten blanket of dust motes dancing in the lone shaft of sunlight, slicing through a crack in the boarded-up window. Sarah, armed with a flashlight and a hesitant heart, ascended the narrow, creaking stairs. Her grandmother, Eleanor, had passed away just last week, leaving behind a house filled with the ghosts of laughter and the tangible weight of memories. Sarah was tasked with sorting through it all, a bittersweet archaeology of a life lived fully. Each object she touched hummed with a story. A chipped teacup, floral and faded, spoke of countless afternoon chats. A collection of smooth gray stones whispered of seaside holidays from her childhood. But it was a heavy, leather-bound trunk tucked away in the darkest corner that drew her attention. Its brass clasps, tarnished with age, gave way with a soft click. Inside, nestled amongst yellowed lace and moth-eaten velvet, lay a violin. It wasn't new, not by a long shot. The wood, a rich, warm brown, was scratched and worn in places, the varnish cracked like an old master's painting. But even in its silent state, it exuded a profound sense of history, a quiet dignity that resonated deep within Sarah. She carefully lifted it, the weight surprisingly comforting in her hands. As her fingers brushed against the aged strings, a faint, ghostly resonance seemed to vibrate through the instrument. Eleanor had never spoken of playing the violin. In fact, Sarah had no idea her grandmother had any musical inclinations at all. Eleanor had always been a woman of practicalities, a gardener with calloused hands, and a baker whose apple pies were legendary. This delicate instrument felt like a secret, a hidden facet of a woman Sarah thought she knew so well. A small, tarnished silver locket lay beside the violin. Sarah picked it up, her thumb tracing the intricate floral engraving. It sprang open to reveal two tiny photographs. One was of a young Eleanor, her eyes sparkling with a youthful exuberance Sarah had only glimpsed in old photographs. The other was of a young man with kind eyes and a gentle smile, holding the very same violin. An inscription was etched inside the locket. Eternally, Leo. A wave of unexpected emotion washed over Sarah. Who was Leo? And what was his connection to her grandmother and this forgotten instrument? A lump formed in her throat, a poignant mix of curiosity and a sudden deep sense of loss for a story she had never known. This violin wasn't just an object, it was a key, a potential melody leading her to a hidden chapter of Eleanor's life, a chapter that seemed to hold both joy and a lingering sorrow. Sarah knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that she had to uncover the story held within the wood and the silent strings. This wasn't just about clearing out a house. It was about finding a piece of her grandmother's heart she never knew existed. Days turned into a quiet investigation. Sarah meticulously cleaned the violin, her touch reverent. The wood seemed to gleam with a newfound life beneath her careful ministrations. She researched violin makers, hoping to find a clue to its origins, but the instrument bore no visible maker's mark. She started asking family members, distant cousins, and elderly friends of Eleanor's. Most were surprised to hear about the violin. "Eleanor? Play music?" "Never," was a common refrain. But a few recalled a fleeting mention, a whisper of a young man from her past, someone before Sarah's grandfather. His name, when it surfaced, was always Leo. Old photographs became her most valuable allies. She pored over albums, searching for Leo's face, for any hint of a shared passion for music. In one faded snapshot from a summer picnic in the 1930s, she spotted him, standing slightly apart from the group, holding a familiar-looking case. Beside him, Eleanor was laughing, her gaze fixed on him with an unmistakable tenderness. The violin had been there, a silent witness to their connection. The locket became her constant companion. She would open it and study their young faces, trying to piece together the narrative that time had obscured. Leo's smile seemed to hold a promise, while Eleanor's eyes reflected a bright hope. What had happened to them? Why had Leo seemingly vanished from her grandmother's life, leaving only a memory locked within a silver locket and a silent violin in the attic? One afternoon, while sifting through a box of Eleanor's letters, Sarah found it. A small folded piece of paper tucked away inside a program from a long-ago town concert. The handwriting was delicate and elegant, clearly not Eleanor's. "My dearest Eleanor, the melody we created tonight still echoes in my heart. Every note I played was for you, a testament to the love that binds us, stronger than any distance or time. I dream of the day when our music will fill our own home, a symphony of our lives together. I have been offered a place with the city orchestra. It is a grand opportunity, one I cannot refuse. It means a journey, a separation. But I promise you, my love, it is only temporary. I will return for you, and for our music. Wait for me, my Eleanor. Wait for the day when our two melodies become one. Eternally yours." Leo. Sarah's breath hitched. This was it. Leo was a musician, and their love was intertwined with their shared passion. The city orchestra. She knew her grandmother had grown up in Chicago. Could it be the Chicago Symphony Orchestra? The letter offered a glimpse of a vibrant past, a love story filled with music and promise. But the promise of return had clearly been broken. Why? What had kept Leo from coming back to Eleanor? Sarah's search led her to the archives of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. It was a long shot, a needle in a haystack of musical history. But she was driven by a growing sense of connection to this lost love, this forgotten melody. After hours of poring over old rosters and programs, a name jumped out at her: Leopold Leo Novak, listed as a violinist in the orchestra during the late 1930s. Her heart pounded. This had to be him. Further research revealed a brief but promising career. Leo had been a talented musician, praised for his lyrical playing. Then, abruptly, his name disappeared from the orchestra's records in early 1942. There was no explanation, just a void where his presence had once been strong. Sarah felt a pang of unease. The year 1942, the war. Could Leo have enlisted? A visit to the local historical society provided the missing piece. Among the lists of local men who had served in World War II, she found it. Leopold Novak, Army Enlistment, 1942. A small notation next to his name read, "Missing in Action, European Theater, 1944. The breath caught in Sarah's throat. The unspoken tragedy, the reason for the broken promise, finally revealed itself. Leo hadn't abandoned Eleanor. He had been a casualty of a world at war, another beautiful melody silenced too soon. She returned to the attic, the violin case open before her. She gently ran her fingers over the strings, the weight of the story now pressing down on her. Eleanor had kept his memory alive, tucked away with his violin, a silent testament to a love that had been tragically cut short. The practical Eleanor, the gardener and baker, had carried this profound sorrow within her for decades, a secret melody played only in the quiet corners of her heart. The following weeks were a period of quiet reflection for Sarah. She learned more about Leo, finding a faded newspaper clipping praising a young violinist named Novak for a moving solo performance. She imagined Eleanor, young and radiant, in the audience, her heart swelling with pride and love. She carefully polished the silver locket, Leo's gentle smile now imbued with a deeper meaning. It wasn't just a picture of a young man. It was the image of a lost future, a shared symphony that was never to be played. One evening, Sarah decided to try to play the violin. She had never learned, her musical talents lying dormant within her. But as she held the instrument, Leo and Eleanor's shared passion seemed to flow through the aged wood. Her first attempts were clumsy, hesitant notes scratching the silence. But she persisted, guided by an instinct she couldn't explain, a feeling that she was somehow continuing their unfinished melody. Slowly, Tentatively, a simple tune began to emerge. It wasn't perfect, but it was there, a fragile echo of the music that had once filled Leo and Eleanor's hearts. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as the notes wavered and soared, a bittersweet lament for a love lost and a hopeful beginning for a melody reborn. She realized then that the violin wasn't just a memento of a past tragedy. It was a legacy, a symbol of enduring love and the power of music to transcend time and loss. Eleanor hadn't just kept the violin, she had preserved a dream, a shared harmony that now lived on in Sarah's hesitant but heartfelt playing. The attic no longer felt heavy with sadness. It felt like a sanctuary, a place where two souls had connected through music, and where that connection now extended to her. The dust motes still danced in the sunlight, but now they seemed to shimmer with the echoes of a love song, a melody finally finding its voice after decades of silence. Sarah knew she would continue to learn, to practice, to let the music within the old violin, their music, finally be heard. It was a promise she made to her grandmother, to Leo, and to the melody that lived within her own heart. As Sarah's calloused fingers grew more adept at coaxing sound from the old violin, a sense of purpose bloomed within her. It wasn't about becoming a virtuoso, it was about honoring Eleanor and Leo's memory, about giving voice to the silent story held within the instrument. She started playing familiar folk tunes, melodies that felt comforting and simple, like Eleanor's baking. The sound, though still imperfect, filled the quiet house with a warmth that had been absent since her grandmother's passing. It was as if the violin itself was sighing with contentment, finally fulfilling its intended purpose. Sarah decided to learn more about the kind of music Leo might have played. She found old sheet music tucked inside the violin case, classical pieces, romantic serenades, and lively folk dances. As she tentatively worked through them, she felt a deeper connection to Leo, imagining his fingers dancing across the very same strings, his heart pouring into the music. One rainy afternoon, while practicing a melancholic piece by Chopin, Sarah had a sudden inspiration. She decided to organize a small memorial gathering for Eleanor, not just to mourn her passing, but to celebrate her life, including this hidden part of her story. She would play the violin, sharing the melody that had connected Eleanor and Leo, a tribute to their enduring love. The thought both excited and terrified her. Playing in front of others felt like a monumental step, a vulnerable exposure of her still developing skill and the deeply personal nature of the music. But she knew it was the right thing to do, a way to finally bring Eleanor's secret melody into the light. The day of the memorial arrived, soft and gray, mirroring the quiet emotions in Sarah's heart. Friends and family gathered in Eleanor's garden, a place she had lovingly tended for so many years. Sarah stood beneath the old oak tree, the violin feeling both familiar and weighty in her hands. She spoke briefly about Eleanor, about the unexpected discovery of the violin and the locket, and about the beautiful, tragic love story of Leo. Her voice trembled slightly, but the warmth of the gathered faces gave her strength. Then she lifted the violin to her chin. The silence that fell was thick with anticipation. Her fingers, though still bearing the marks of her initial clumsiness, now moved with a newfound confidence, guided by weeks of practice and a deep well of emotion. The first notes of a simple, heartfelt melody filled the air. It was a folk tune she had imagined Leo might have played for Eleanor on a quiet evening. The sound wasn't flawless, but it was full of feeling, each note carrying a piece of their story, the youthful joy, the shared passion, the eventual sorrow. As she played, Sarah closed her eyes, picturing Eleanor and Leo in their youth, their faces radiant with love. She imagined their shared dreams, their whispered promises under a starlit sky. The music became a bridge, connecting the past and the present, bringing their lost melody into the hearts of those gathered. Tears flowed freely among the listeners, not just tears of sadness, but tears of understanding, of shared humanity, and of the poignant beauty of a love that had endured despite the cruel hand of fate. When the last note faded into the gentle breeze, a profound sense of peace settled over Sarah. She opened her eyes to see the faces of her family and friends, their expressions filled with a quiet understanding and a shared sense of loss and love. Her cousin, Margaret, Eleanor's closest living relative, approached her, her eyes glistening. "Sarah," she said softly. "Eleanor." She mentioned him. Just once, years ago. A young man, a musician. She never spoke of what happened. Thank you for bringing his music, their story, back to us. In that moment, Sarah understood the true treasure she had found in the attic. It wasn't just a valuable antique. It was a connection to her grandmother's deepest heart, a melody that had waited patiently to be heard. The violin now held a place of honor in Sarah's living room, no longer a forgotten relic, but a living testament to enduring love. She continued to play, her skill growing with each passing day, the music becoming a part of her own story now, intertwined with Eleanor and Leo's. Sometimes, when she played a particularly poignant passage, she would glance at the silver locket resting on the piano, Leo's gentle smile seeming to encourage her. And she knew that their melody, though marked by tragedy, would continue to resonate, a reminder that love, like music, can echo through generations, a timeless harmony in the attic of the heart.